Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Dwivedi, and in this segment today we are going to talk about oil, the edible oils that comes from palm oil, that cultivation in India. Okay, so let's begin with the topics of discussion. Step by step we are going to go through all these topics, starting with the news. So on the independence speech, the Prime Minister of India, he declared a national mission on edible oil palm, in order to become an Atmanirbhar Bharat and reduce dependency on different countries for edible oils. We will discuss all about that in detail. Let's start with the current news piece. Oil palm plant for Northeast and Andaman. It's a recipe for disaster, this news piece is saying. And hence, we are going to see two dimensions. First, the National Mission on Edible Oil Palm, and the second one will be the ecological and environmental cost for it. Okay, let's start with the National Mission on Edible Oil Palm. So, the National Mission on Oil Seeds and Oil Palm, which was a scheme launched in the year 2014 and 15 in order to increase the cultivation of palm for edible oil in India. And it was merged with the National Food Security Mission in the year 2018-19. But now what will happen? This mission, the National Mission on Edible Oil Palm, it will subsume the National Mission for Oilseed and Oil Palm, that is NFSM. The merging of it will subsume it. And this mission will be a centrally sponsored scheme. That means there are two types of schemes, central sector and central sponsored. In central sector, the funding, the entire 100% funding is from the government of India, that is central government. And in the sponsored schemes, it will be in a share of 75:25 or whatever the ratio will be. And it will take into account self-reliance in the field of cultivation of palm oil, as India did for wheat and rice. And accordingly, it will raise the domestic production of palm oil by 3 times to 11.20 lakh tons by the year 2025 to 26 and to 28 lakh tons by 2029 and 30. That means the cultivation of palm oil will have to be increased in a phase-wise manner. Also, Andaman and Nicobar Islands and the northeastern region of India, this is going to be specially focused at. And that is the entire issue, because it is a very ecologically sensitive area, and we have to be very critical when we talk about any economically development program, and with balance with the ecology. We have to take everything into account. Moving on, let's talk about the additional 6.5 lakh hectares of land that will be generated by 2025 to 26. The area needs to be impacted, and hence it will be increased thereafter to 10 lakh hectare by the year 2030. So as you can see, this is a very ambitious program. How will it be done? Why I am being a farmer here, and why will I take care of such schemes? Why will I ever sign up for this scheme? A farmer needs investment, and a farmer needs more return on his or her investment. So how will it be done? So price assurances will be given by the government to the farmers who are cultivating palm oil, and that is a kind of MSP only, minimum support price. That means a predetermined price will be fixed by the government as for 23 crops that the government does under MSP, and so that the price volatility for palm oil will not affect the farmers, and it's a viable price. It will be set at 14.3% of crude palm oil price, and hence it will be increased thereafter to 15.3%. And sunset clause is also there. Sunset clause means a clause which expires by itself automatically, and that is the date of November 1st, 2037. And the deficiency price payment, whatever there will be a deficiency in the cost and benefit of cultivating the palm oil, it will be generated, it will be filled up by the help of direct benefit transfers to the farmers. Moving on, Northeastern Andaman Nicobar Islands, these are the special focus areas, and in order for helping the farmers to be earning at par with the rest of the country, the government will give 2% of the crude palm oil prices. Okay. And it will also increase the support of inputs and investment. Whatever inputs and investment will be done in the cultivation of palm oil, that will also be taken into account. It will also increase the investment in there. And why does India need to be independent in this sphere? Because India is the largest consumer of edible oil and the third biggest importer. The palm oils, actually, edible oil, it is the third largest import. Okay, biggest consumer and third largest import of edible oil after crude oil and gold, and then comes palm oil. Also, vegetable oil imports, in the oil basket that India imports, palm oil takes 55% of it. Also, the countries from which we import palm oil, Malaysia and Indonesia, keep these facts in mind. Moving ahead, 94% of the palm oil is used in, it's not just for edible purposes, but food industry and cooking industry, and in many consumer products, the fast moving goods, edible oil is used. Also, 20 million tons we need to take into account the impacts on the production. 20 million tons will be needed or demanded by the Indian citizenry because of the increase or so much of spike in increase of the disposable income. The people becoming more and more, having more and more disposable income will of course tend to invest more in consuming food products. So this will be the demand by 2030. So we also need to increase farmers' income because palm oil is one of the crops that give huge return on investment as compared to the other crops such as groundnuts, sunflower. So that is also very important. Let's move on to the next facet of it, the ecological impacts. As we know, the northeastern and the Andaman and Nicobar areas, these regions are ecologically very fragile, and that is why it is being said that this mission is a recipe for disaster. And oil palm is basically a water guzzling crop. That means it consumes a lot of water. And also it is a monoculture crop. That means no other crop can be cultured alongside. Then it also has a long gestation period, which is unsuitable for farmers, small farmers, because I as a farmer, when I invest in some crop, I want the return as soon as possible, but it has a long gestation period. The gestation period means when I tend to sow a seed, it will take a lot of time when it starts getting ready for harvest, and hence then will be the return. Also, biodiversity hotspots and ecologically fragile. These areas, especially in the northeastern and Andaman areas, were acknowledged in the past as well, and it will create denudation of forest and also destroy the habitat, as it has destroyed the habitats of orangutans in Southeast Asia. So that is another concern. It is being said that in the 1980s, technological acumen was taken into consideration when we talk about edible oil seed mission. But this was not, the government did not go ahead with it, the then government, because of the ecologically sensitive areas of northeastern and Andaman region. Also, it is, as I said, a recipe for ecological disaster. I am quoting that. And palm is actually an invasive species. That means once it gets cultured, it will take up the space for those species which are native in nature. Any species of vegetation which already exists is there to balance the ecological hemisphere of that region. And if the palm oil trees, they start invading those areas, the ecologically sensitive areas will have to be altered. They will get altered itself, and that is the another reason. Also, it will impact the social fabric because the tribes of northeastern region, they have their identity attached to the community shared land. Once that gets broken, of course, the social hierarchy and the social fabric will also get disturbed. And center stand. What is the center saying? Center is saying that we are going ahead with lots of scientific analysis, and the land available for cultivation is already there. it is already there and there is no need to bring down or fell more trees. Okay, this is the center stand. The center is saying we are not going to deforest that area. It is already available, and that is why it is focused for palm oil cultivation. Also, the agency which actually surveyed the region for palm oil cultivation, it said that 28 lakh hectares of land is available and only 9 lakh hectares is there in the northeastern region. It's not a lot according to the government. Moving on, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they have some past experience with palm oil cultivation, but now the plantations are abandoned because these were invasive species. These were actually upsetting the ecological balance of that area. And abandoned plantations lie on the 𝐾𝐞𝐚𝐽 Island in the Nicobar chain. Also, Indian Institute of Oil Palm Research in 2018, it said that these abandoned areas can be reclaimed and these can be renewed by supplementing the region with palm oil cultivation. And such areas are Kachal, Maratang, Kamorta, and Teresa as well. It also said that the climatic conditions on soil of that region is it will balance the palm oil cultivation. It is suitable for palm oil cultivation. But in 2019, the Commissioner for Forest Area of Andaman and Nicobar, he said that these areas are actually reserved forest areas. And for having palm oil cultivation there, we need to talk about the 2002 notification by the Supreme Court, which said that any plantation of rubber, teak and palm oil as well has to be phased out because it was upsetting the balance of the reserved forest area. And existing plantation, whether of, here it is written, of oil, palm, rubber or teak, should be phased out. That is by the Supreme Court. We have to talk about that notification as well. And Sri Lanka, which actually shares similar climate with Andaman and Nicobar, it has disavowed the oil palms. It has actually raised out the earlier plantations and substituted it with more environment-friendly crops because of the water guzzling capacity of palm oil. This actually caused a lot of havoc for the streams, the water streams, and also it showed signs of becoming an invasive species. Whenever a species is invasive, it takes up the ground of every existing native species and upsets the balance. And Andhra Pradesh, which grows more than 90% of Indian oil palm farmers, it depends on borewell irrigation and also lots of pesticides because it is not a native species of Andhra Pradesh and it causes a lot of stress on the water. Although Kerala is pretty happy and it has a big history with palm oil cultivation. So there are mixed reactions to it. Moving ahead, if we talk about the challenges, the first one, invasive species, it upsets the balance because it roots out the already existing and more suitable crops. Also, it will have ecological issues because biodiversity, bird or a particular animal which is more suited for the native area, it will get disturbed and ecological balance of that area will get disturbed. Then it will also create a lot of stress on water, groundwater availability, and how to have the infrastructure for irrigation for areas such as Andaman and Nicobar. That will also need the clearance of forests, okay, because for irrigation purposes, proper machinery should be there. That will also have an impact on biodiversity. And there is not a lot of technological acumen available for having infrastructural support as well as ecological sustainability support in these areas. Alright, let's move forward and talk about the way forward. We need scientific analysis. Many biologists, activists, they are saying that it is going to upset the balance. That means their findings are actually premised on very strong and robust findings. That is why they are saying it. So it is important that scientists, academics, industries, everyone should come together and try to have an economic development based on sustainable practices. And tribes and communities which are dependent on those regions should also be taken into account. We have to take lessons from the world, especially Southeast Asia. In Southeast Asia, denudation of forest, and also the stress on water has been seen. So we can take lessons from them. We should not just try to implement any sort of scheme or policy because it is sustainable economically but also environmentally. Also, palm oil substitutes more environmental friendly, as well as substitutes which are equally returning should be also taken into account. The palm oil, it should try to be substituted to a much larger extent by those oils which are very good for dryland farming, such as groundnut. So this should also be taken into account, that whenever we try to especially monoculture any area, some things need to be taken into account: the soil, the climatic conditions, the irrigation capacity of that region. Everything is something like that is being done, is in the process for Andaman and Nicobar areas. Many tribes, orangs and Jaravas, which are dependent on the crops of the region of Andaman and Nicobar, they are being assured that we will let you have a culture of the crops which are native in species and also palm oil, so that in the beginning of the phase of this scheme you can have proper income support. So that is also being taken into account. We will see that on an experimental basis how it goes forward. Okay, so we have discussed everything. Moving on to the mains based question. Critically analyze the issues related to the cultivation of palm oil cultivation in India in 250 words. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated, and thank you so much for watching.